first, let me take this opportunity to introduce to you my guest anchor, Peter Sankale, better known to you as Olexander Josphat of Vioja Mahakamani. Welcome to KTN.
Yes. Hello.
Okay.
Pande gani?
Just come.
Unajua sijazoea.
Najua hujazoea.
Sijazoea.
Mzuri kabisa.
Asante sana.
Mzuri.
Yes.
Uko mrefu.
Nikaa hapa ama?
Hapo uko sawa tu.
Yes.
Uko mrefu sana, si kama kawaida vile tunakuona kwa.
Sasa wewe ukikaa chini na mimi ni Sringange utafikiri mimi ndio mrefu. Yes.
Na rungu umebeba nini? Hope si
hii wewe wacha. Sio unabebanga kalamu.
Mimi nabeba kalamu.
Mimi siwezi hata bila hii. Hata wale wanipatia hii, wale wasee walinipatia hii. Nadha wako wapi?
Au hapa.
Habari zenu wase? Hata wanafikiri wananiona. Ndio niko area hii.
Yes, hata news. Unaona utafaulu aje kusoma news?
Kusoma news tu ni kama tu kutoa hotuba.
Unajua si kama pale vya Mahakamani mali una sema tu maneno ile inatoka tu kwa
hii hapana kuropoka.
Hii ni ile serious news.
Uko mahali utasoma?
Utasoma mahali?
Sawa. Utasoma. Ikifika wakati hiyo ama nisome saa hii?
Si saa hii. Wewe kaa chini uenjoy kidogo alafu.
Wacha ni relax mahali.
Relax tu mahali kwa studio.
Kwa soda. Soda. Naweza kunywa soda nikingoja chai.
Unaweza kunywa soda. Sawa, pewa soda. All right, that is Olexander Josphat of Vioja Mahakamani. He will be our guest anchor tonight. But also remember, Willis Ocheng, aka Willis the Word Master, is currently on standby in Kisumu County. Willis, we are hoping to hear those troublesome words from you tonight. We will be joining you in just a short while. But first, let's start by taking a look at the news making headlines. Well, we begin tonight at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, where mystery surrounds a huge explosion that shocked parts of Terminal 1 last night. Police have been giving conflicting statements on the incident that has raised new fears about safety at that airport. Police are now investigating if there is a connection between that blast and a bullet-ridden body found in a car hours after the incident. KTN senior crimes and investigations reporter Dennis Onsarigo begins our news coverage tonight.
Riddled motor vehicle, a dead body, and a contradictory police version of events has the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport family back in the news. The motor vehicle was spotted by police on the bait near Shauri Moyo area last night, and its origin traced back to an incident at the international exit point hours earlier. Initial police investigations suggest that the vehicle failed to stop at the final exit barrier at the airport, prompting police officers to open fire. That was moments after a loud blast at the passenger terminal number 1. The blast from this restaurant saw passengers near Unit 1 terminal scamper for safety. The loud bang was quickly dismissed by the National Police Service as a slight electrical malfunction. In fact, the police said a light bulb had exploded because of renovation works on some power lines. But KTN has established there was more to the light bulb, a litter bin, and a police version of events. The Jomo Kenyatta International Airport police boss told KTN earlier in the day the explosion was caused by a light bulb that fell inside a litter bin. But management at the restaurant here says they did not keep litter bins inside the restaurant and they have not replaced any single bulb since last night.
Kuna bulb ilipasuka hapa mahali? Hakuna bulb? Hakuna. Kuna bulb light bulb.
A bomb-bearing gadget that is normally used to detonate improvised explosive devices was removed from the scene of the blast, and an improvised explosive device recovered from this motor vehicle, prompting police investigators to link the motor vehicle and its occupants to the blast at the airport. A body of a man of Somali origin was booked at the city mortuary as that of an unknown African male at 2:30 a.m. The man had suffered gunshot injuries in his stomach and was found lying in the backseat of what appeared to be the getaway car. He was booked at the mortuary as a murder victim. Police are yet to make any arrests, let alone identify the man in the car and the mission of the two others who abandoned the motor vehicle at Shauri Moyo. Police are relying on CCTV cameras to place faces on the men who appear to have been on a deadly mission. Denison Sarigo, KTN Prime.
To Nyeri now, where the woman whose newborn child died under horrifying circumstances is now threatening to sue the hospital in question. Charity Wanjiku was forced to return home prematurely after her husband said he could no longer trust the medical facilities. KTN's Central Kenya reporter Carol Nderi spoke to the distraught family, whose pain is unlikely to go away anytime soon.
At the Ndigirigi household, a sense of grief. This after Charity Wanjiku lost her child at the Nyeri Provincial General Hospital. Wanjiku was discharged hours after the incident and she's now back to their simple rented house in Chaka area of Nyeri. Her husband Peter says it was on his insistence as he could no longer trust the hospital.
Nilitoka huko karibu saa 10 na hakuna kitu kingine walinifanyia.
Hata nyumbani ni afadhali juu nitaona na huyu mgonjwa sio mzuri mpaka hospitali ingine. Nikata nikaambia daktari anipatie discharge.
Wanjiku is evidently weak, her words coming out slowly as she shares with KTN what transpired.
The same day nikarudi kitu saa 6:30 hivyo. Nikaenda nikapata manasi zote walikuwa wamelala, hata student wengine walikuwa huko bado walikuwa wamelala. Tukakaa hapo kiwaita bado wamelala. Mwisho ndo akaamuka.
The hospital's medical superintendent Silas Njoroge admitted that the baby fell straight from the womb to the hard cemented floor, dying 10 minutes later.
Of course, the cause of death most likely is the fall, hitting the head and the ground.
And we asked Wanjiku how it came to be that she delivered her baby while standing.
Uchungu ilikuja kabisa. Kaa nimesimama, nikaita nasi, walikuwa tu hapo tu karibu. Nikamwambia daktari, mtoto anataka kuanguka. Wakaigno, hawakukuja. Mara hiyo tu mtoto akaanguka.
The tale is still almost too painful to listen to, and there is not mistaking her bitterness as she tells it.
Nikamwambia si nilikuja hapa ndio mnitibu, sasa ningejuaje na mtoto tu nimeshtukia anaanguka. Wakaanza hapo makelele, lakini vile nilikuanga na uchungu, naona mtoto amekufa, sikushughulika na wao.
Hiyo wiki, hiyo wakati alikuwa anaenda huko maternity, mwanaka alikuwa amekufa. Sasa mimi nilikuwa na hiyo mipango.
Her husband Peter sits next to her. The conversation he had with the medics he found stationed at the maternity ward still makes him angry.
Nikawauliza, walikuwa watatu. Nikawauliza nani alikuwa na tibu Charity Wanjiku. Kaniambia sisi hatupelekaga speed vyenye unafikiria. Nikuja pole pole. Ngema hata mimi nataka pole pole. Kwanza nionyeshe mtoto wangu pahali ako. Kaniuliza, unauliza mtoto mfanya nini? Utamvuvua?
Immediately when the sisters who were there, the nurses who were there, had the cry, they rushed there, tried to resuscitate the baby, but to no avail.
The hospital attributed the problem to lack of adequate personnel, saying the nurses on duty had to attend to another patient who had arrived with a ruptured uterus.
Our maternity is very, very difficult to sleep in that maternity, especially on nights like yesterday where there are deliveries, there are emergencies to be done. It is very difficult.
Bedi yangu ikiwa hapa, kuna nasi mwingine alikuwa amelala hapo. Sasa vile walikuwa wameweka nini curtain hapo, nilikuwa naona kuna mwingine amelala hapo. Kwa hiyo meza ya hapa alionekanga kuna mwingine alikuwa amelala na huyu mwingine mwenye alikuwa anazunguka. Lakini nikisema ni kujifungua, walikuwa wote watatu hapo wakiongea.
Peter Ndigirigi and Charity Wanjiku were looking forward to cuddling their third born, their parents to do daughters. They had longed for a son and had chosen the name Wisdom Iriga if the baby would be a boy. Now their son is no more.
Sina mtoto. Ile pesa nilikuwa ati nifanye kitu kingine. Wamebeba. Jisa wakati wamebeba mtoto niko na nini? Sasa sina pesa na sina mtoto.
Peter is a stonemason at construction sites in Kiganjo and Charity sells groceries at a kiosk. They're seeking compensation from the hospital but also say suing Nyeri PGH will act as a deterrent and prevent public hospitals from mishandling patients.
Huko kuna kuwaka na nini? Na CCTV. Si watatoa tu hizo picha. Tuone.
We need to do an audit and see what went wrong.
Carol Jerry for KTN in Chaka, Nyeri County.
Let me now give you an update on the Sudan situation, and talks continue in South Sudan and talks continue in Ethiopia to seek a ceasefire agreement. But as the war continues, the East African community is now urging humanitarian organizations to provide the necessary assistance to all civilians caught up in the war. In a joint communique, the five member countries, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda and Burundi, have expressed concern over the escalation of conflict and called on the conflicting parties to bring a quick end to the killings and suffering of civilians.
So we actually have a good team with a very supportive secretariat that's dealing with this. The team has the responsibility of reporting to the Council of Ministers on every step that it takes, and we have been fully informed of all the steps that it has taken so far. I think, during a negotiation and during, processes such as this, you will have very many accusations and counter-accusations. And I think that the lesson that one must always draw is to avoid the sideshows and never to deviate from the roadmap that was agreed by the summit itself. We must not take our eyes off the ball. And the ball for us is stability and security in South Sudan.
And joining me in studio right now is South Sudan Foreign Affairs Minister Dr. Barnaba Marial Benjamin. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Now, it has been 1 month and 2 days since the fighting began. The rebel sides say that they've stood their ground, saying that for them to cease fire, all their political detainees allied to them must be released. But on the other hand, the government says that it is willing to have a deal, but with no preconditions. What is the way forward?
Well, I can assure you that on behalf of the government of the Republic of South Sudan, we are completely committed to the IGAD initiative in trying to end the conflict by expressing our full commitment to the 4 principles that were raised by the IGAD countries during the Heads of State Summit here, hosted by President Uhuru, with the presence of the other presidents of the IGAD region. And that is dialogue, direct dialogue without any preconditions. 2, cessation of hostilities, to which we are indeed committed. And number 3, the consideration for the release of detainees according to the laws of the Republic of South Sudan. And number 4, unhindered humanitarian assistance to all the areas, including the areas where the rebels might be present. And I think this is a commitment that President Salva Kiir Mayardit has assured his colleagues in IGAD countries, that we are committed to that process. But we must remember that the government of the Republic of South Sudan is an elected democratic government by the people of South Sudan. It has got sovereign responsibility, and territorial integrity of that country is under full responsibility of the government. So for rebels to claim the fact that the government has agreed that we hold this dialogue, I think it is a very positive sign on part of a legitimate government elected by its people to talk to people who would like to change the government and elected democratic government through the use of force. So I can assure you, yes, we are indeed committed. And I must take this opportunity to thank President Uhuru and the people of Kenya for the humanitarian assistance that they have delivered during the days of the crisis.
But just staying a little bit on that, I mean, these rebels continue to kill people. They continue to make life unbearable for the people who are in places like Bor. I mean, if it indeed needed the intervention of government in terms of what they really want to stop this unrest, I mean, is it not fair for the people of Sudan who are now in distress?
By all means, Betty, you are absolutely right that it is the duty of any government to protect its citizens, to see the welfare of its citizens. And that's why we are telling the rebels the fact that you were a part of this government, because incidentally, former Vice President Riek was the deputy chair of the SPLM, which is the ruling party, and the second person within the executive. So he knows exactly the constitutionality and the legality of this government and its responsibility to protect our citizens. That's why we have compromised and say, look, let's go to the IGAD forum. Let's talk to them and find out what they really want. if a former vice president would like to be the president of the Republic of South Sudan, there is one option. The power is in the hands of the people of South Sudan through a free and fair multi-party elections. He has the right, like any other citizen constitutionally, to contest for the presidency. He hasn't to take the country back to rebellion and war and suffering. And this is what pains us, because people of South Sudan, as you know, have suffered for so long.
All right. And looking at Riek Machar being such a high-profile leader in that particular, in the government, I mean, for him to go and use such means, does it in any way mean that probably there's no room in the government for a strong opposition, for him to decide, I will back out and join the opposition and take this seat?
You see, it is not surprising that our former vice president has repeated what he did in 1991. Actually, he staged a coup in 1991 against our late leader, Dr. John Garang, and a lot of people were killed in that process. No doubt history repeats itself. But having said that, here he is, the second person in the party, the ruling party, the second person in the government, and we were working all as a political party to establish democratic institutions where the transfer of power can be done through the will of the people, peacefully. One is really surprised, why would he resort to this? Because he had options. If he didn't get the party leadership of the SPLM, he could have withdrawn and formed his own party. You know, here in Kenya, how many people have formed parties on their own when they differ? And you contest in your own right, quite a number. I don't need to name them. Secondly, he could have actually, in 2015 we are going to have general elections and presidential elections. He could contest by that time as an independent candidate.
But let's go back to history, just a bit of history. Sorry to cut you short.
Yes.
I mean, do you think it was maybe premature for the president to fire the vice president at a time when the government, the country is just trying to stabilize itself, is trying to get its footing, being the youngest country in the world? Do you think maybe it was a tough call for him to do it?
Well, you know, this is a democratic government. This is not the first reshuffle that has happened. Vice President Riek has been a vice president for 8 years, incidentally, you know. And they have done reshuffle together when he was as a vice president together with the president. They have been reshuffling governments. This is not the first reshuffle. What surprises us is why when the reshuffle now becomes the victim of that reshuffle, then he resorts to this. So it has been a system happening, and like all governments, of course, you need, in democratic principles, you need to reshuffle, and especially when you are a vice president. When you are a vice president and a running mate of a sitting president, you're supposed to work together. You are the advisor number one to the president.
All right.
You cannot turn around and say, oh, Mr. President, you have failed, and you begin to count. When you are actually, the question would be, what advice have you been giving the president? So I can assure you, Dr. Riek had all the opportunities. If he had the patience and allowed the democratic processes to go ahead, we will not be in this shambles today.
All right. Finally, maybe the many South Sudan nationals who are watching, and they're probably wondering what's the situation back home, if they're in Kenya or any other areas in the continent. I mean, they're wondering what is happening. Maybe you could bring us up to speed with what is exactly happening there, and of course, putting into context the humanitarian situation. Is it worsening?
Yeah. My message to my fellow South Sudanese, whether you are with Dr. Riek or whether you are with the government, that the government of the Republic of South Sudan under the presidency of Salva Kiir Mayardit is in control of the situation. Yes, there is still fighting involved, but we are committed as your government to see that this issue is resolved through the IGAD process peacefully, because we would like peace to come to our people. The suffering of our children, suffering of our mothers and sisters is intolerable. So the government is committed to see that peace is achieved, and that is the commitment. Secondly, we would like to appeal also for humanitarian aid, and as I said, we thank certain governments, including your government here, President Uhuru, for the tremendous effort they have done in trying to get relief down. So the government is for peace. That is the message.
Thank you very much, Minister, for your time.
Thank you.
Right. That has been South Sudan Foreign Affairs Minister Dr. Barnaba Marial Benjamin, just bringing us up to speed with what is happening at that country. Let's now move on, and we are asking you And we will be going, sorry for that. Let's now go to what could turn out to be the most bizarre of all county taxes. Busia County is now proposing to charge mourners 200 shillings each for viewing a body that is lying in a morgue. The finance bill suggests that mourners will have to part with the money for each visit to the mortuary. Now, that bill also proposes a tax on choir members, listen to this, who attend a practice session in church. And of course, in Busia County, where death is associated with many ceremonies, families will now have to deal with a double blow if the Finance Bill 2013 is passed. The Busia County government is proposing a tax of 200 shillings every time you view a body of a loved one at the morgue. And for Western Kenya, where mourning the dead is an extended affair that can at least be between a week and a month, this is a matter they are not ready to take lying down. But that fee is not just on the dead. Churches too will be feeling the pinch. Normal church services in Busia will attract a fee of 1,000 shillings every week.
Wakati kanisa iko na conference, itakuwa inalipa shilingi 1,000 kila siku. Conference ya ndani ya kanisa, inside the church. Sasa utaona hii bill, kwa kusema kweli, nia yake ni kuharibu injili.
Kanisa, kuna kanisa zingine ziko na wafasi wachache, hata wakitoa sadaka haiwezi fika 400 hiyo yenye wanataka. Sasa watapataje? Ni ngumu. Hiyo naona ni kuturisha kwa serikali nyingine. Ni ngumu.
Well, and that story on the bizarre taxes leads us to a big question tonight, and we're asking, do you support the latest tax proposals from Busia County? Well, send your yes or no opinion to the number 22155, giving us a brief comment. You can also tweet me at Betty Kyalo or at KTN Kenya, and I'll be glad to sample your views as we move on. Let's now move on to another story. The bizarre taxes from Busia are only the latest in a series of baffling proposals coming from the devolved units. Experts now warn that the race for money might plunge the counties into further crisis. KTN's Catherine Omonto takes a closer look at the taxing times and what else could be in the offing.
Nairobi County government collected about 128 million shillings in parking fee alone in the month of December 2013. And this amount is set to shoot up after courts gave Governor Dr. Evans Kedero the go-ahead to increase parking fees from 140 to 300 shillings within the Central Business District and 200 shillings outside the CBD. While Nairobi's cash cow is parking, other county governments are scrambling to collect as much revenue as they can from residents, and it's becoming vicious and unapologetic.
Any basic farmer, knows that for you to get milk from any cow, the first thing you need to do is to actually steam it and give a lot of food so that they can actually be producing milk. You don't get a cow and just start milking it, not knowing whether it has any diseases or any problem that would stop it from producing milk.
While governors will use the excuse that county governments were put between a rock and a hard place when the government allocated just 13% of the national budget to county development, the race for all manner of taxes has become nearly comical.
When you look at things like taxing, somebody, say 20 shillings for every chicken you slaughter, it really makes no sense, because really you're attacking, the very food, what these people like for food. For example, in Kakamega or in Vihiga, what you should actually be doing is to say, let me increase the number of chickens so that we can actually be exporting it.
It is not just Kakamega County. Nearly all county governments are rushing headlong into the homestead, the churches, and social places to tax anything in sight.
You pay the license for municipal, the 35 or whatever they are talking about. Then you pay KRA, the license, the $400. Then now you remain with VAT, you remain with income tax, you remain with port passes, you remain with fares here and there. Surely.
Many residents question whether being taxed at the county level and then again by the national government could amount to double taxation.
The relationship between the governors and the president is not very clear. every governor now thinks that they are small presidents and they're calling themselves His Excellency. Their wives are first ladies, I don't know, all those kind of things, which makes no sense. Even if you go to the United States, you don't get those kind of things. Now, I think we need to really properly synchronize the working, the operational structure between the national government and the central government, so and the county governments, so that whatever goes on in the county government is actually moved up.
While it is the prerogative of county governments to impose taxes on residents, the real shock is the items they have chosen to slap taxes on, from chickens all the way to the dead. Catherine Omwando, KTN.
Now, in Murang'a County, one village is celebrating the technological exploits of one boy who is generating electricity from the river. And as KTN's Wilkis Tanyabo reports, the young man says it is all for the love of his mother.
Deep in the heart of Kahinduini village, one spots electricity poles and power lines, but they do not supply power to the whole village. The electricity lines act as a trail of sorts, leading one to this homestead. It is the home of a young man who has found a way to generate enough electricity to keep his mother's homestead running. 22-year-old John Magiro Wangare sat his Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education examination last year at a local secondary school. He was deemed a below-average academic performer, often scoring an E in physics and hardly able to spell. He was once even sent to a special school. But John had a secret, one that would prove his special weapon.
Hata ikiwa mambo ya masomo si haiko sawa kwangu, kufikiria na talent yenye niko nayo, hata kuangalia kitu hivyo already naweza tengeneza.
3 years ago, John embarked on an ambitious project. Without prior knowledge of power production and with very little assistance from his teachers, Magiro undertook to generate hydroelectricity. He tapped water from the local river and, using 6,000 shillings borrowed from his mother, bought an old bicycle rim, part of an old chaff cutter, and a conveyor belt to make a turbine, a gearbox, and a generator.
Nikatengeneza turbine ya bao ambayo ilikuwa inazunguzwa na maji, halafu inazuguza gurudumu, halafu gurudumu inazuguza knob ya dynamo, inatoa mwangaza.
For poles, John cut down trees in his mother's compound and used thin zinc wires to transport power to the house. And after 3 years of trying, his efforts finally bore fruit. In his neighborhood, only John's home is powered by electricity. The young inventor plans to sell power to his neighbors just as soon as he raises enough funds to expand his operation. In the time being, he works to maintain what he has already achieved. John's dream is to build an electric car and to come up with inventions which will help to turn life around. And he has already begun. John's home serves as a beacon to every other home in the area. Wilkis Tanyabo, KTN.
Now, the debate on homosexuality in Africa has returned with a new twist after the government in Nigeria and Uganda passed legislation criminalization the act. A section of Kenyan human rights activists are now expressing fear that the wave might spread to the country. But President Yoweri Museveni, who has often castigated gays and lesbians, has surprised his critics by rejecting a bill that would have imposed stiff penalties on homosexuals. KTN's Joy Dorinbera has more.
The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Be upon the spirit of the dead. Be upon all those who are fighting for the human rights. Be upon all of you now.
It is a taboo subject in many communities, but in parts of Africa, it is now leading to murder and a heated debate across the continent. And on the whole continent, only South Africa has legalized gay marriage. This Monday, January 13, 2014, Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan passed the anti-gay bill into law. Homosexual acts in Nigeria shall henceforth be punishable by a 14-year jail term. Also banned is what the law calls aiding gay activism and gay groups.
Married to a man is very bad. It's very bad. I can't see why a man should get married to a man.
Marry woman, let a woman marry a man. So if this country is not for them for justice, they should leave to another place.
Nearer home, Uganda's parliament in December 2013 passed the anti-gay bill, raising more international condemnation. However, in a twist of events, President Museveni has now rejected the bill. In a letter addressed to parliament, Museveni accuses the House of going against the law by passing the anti-gay bill without quorum. His concerns being, quote, the question at the core of the debate of the homosexuals is what do we do with an abnormal person? Do we kill him or her? Do we imprison him or her? Or do we contain him or her? End quote. He added that the challenge is, quote, how to correctly handle the sexually abnormal on one hand and those who use money and or influence to recruit, end quote. In Kenya, the LGBT Commission, whose registration is yet to be approved, however, says intolerance across African nations is leading to increased stigmatization and loss of lives as gay communities seek asylum in Kenya.
The Kenya police is not at part providing security for asylum seekers. So what's happening is that they have to rely on networks from LGBT organizations in Kenya.
While it is not definite of gay community population in Kenya, condemnation from national leaders has stamped where Kenya and many African countries stand on the contentious subject, from religious leaders to political leaders.
Don't go the way that Uganda, see, they have their anti-homosexuality bill, but who are they punishing? Not the homosexuality, it's the homosexuals.
However, critics insist that African heads of state Goodluck Jonathan and Yoweri Museveni are dancing to political tunes for political benefit in both Nigeria and Uganda. Joy Doreen Bira, KTN Friday Briefing.
Let's remind you of our big question tonight, and of course it's about those bizarre taxes in Busia County, and we're asking you, do you support the latest tax proposals from Busia County? Do you support those particular proposals that will see people pay at least 200 shillings to just view a body in the morgue, and also for choirs that go to sing like in the church a session for the funeral, they'll also have to pay?
Let's now take you to a place where sharing is the name of the game. We are talking about Nairobi's smoking zone, where everyone is given a rousing. Cigarette smoking is regarded as harmful as for your health, but now experts are warning that sharing that stick will kill you even faster. Ian Wafula has more.
In the Nairobi city center, the smoke announces it. This is where they come to quench that thirst. Anyone who walks into the zone, even those visiting for the first time, are readily taken in. Perhaps these are the spots with the most generous people in town, as the participants are selfless with the cigarettes.
Iko Nairobi na siwezi nyima mtu, akiniomba mimi napatia yeye.
Tukiwa hapa, sisi sote nikaa tuko kanisa moja. Maana kila mtu anatoka mahali anatoka, anakuja anavutia kasigara wapi, unakutania wapi? Maana najua kiu ya sigara. Na mimi hata mimi saingine naombaga. Naweza kuja hapa na nione mmoja anavuta hapa na sina hata sumni.
But it is this very sharing of cigarettes that now has health experts concerned.
Hapo kuna hatari. Manake kuna wale wana vidonda midomoni. Na kuna magonjwa haswa ugonjwa wa hepatitis B na ugonjwa wa HIV. Magonjwa kama haya ni rahisi mtu kuambukizwa katika hiyo hali ya kutumia sigara moja watu wengi.
Kanza sio kila mtu. Bana, hiyo ni ugonjwa tu kama hii ugonjwa ya mguu. Kuna wazee wamefuta sigara, wamekunywa pombe miaka na roti na mpaka 80s 90s 100 yes.
Yule anavuta kibinafsi peke yake huenda awe afadhali kiafya kuliko wanaovuta wengi na wanaoshiriki sigara watu wengi, sigara moja.
But smoking and the now conspicuous smoking zones have become part and parcel of the lives of smokers, and they can't imagine letting go.
Kama hapa watuwekee viti tukae chini, utape fresh. Yeah, tukae chini. Wase wakae chini wakivuta sigara.
The zones were introduced back in 2008 after the Tobacco Control Act was passed, making it illegal to smoke outside the designated areas. As much as sharing a puff or two feels like a brotherhood activity, health professionals continue to warn about the side effects of cigarettes, especially to those who opt to share. Ian Wafula, KTN.
What do you think? Are you a smoker?
As in whether smoke comes out of me or what?
Yes.
I don't smoke, and I've actually never smoked.
What
But
do
the
you-
thing is, I wonder, I end up smoking so many times because if you pass next to that smoking area,
You
the
also
smoking
looks
zone,
like you're smoking.
there's so much smoke that blows into the road.
And they say that
And that is secondary smoke.
which is even worse.
It's even worse. So I take the already used smoke, they take the fresh smoke.
Exactly.
So
And you see the kind of
I think
impact it can have on your health. The effect,
the
yeah.
impact is so bad.
All right.
You heard the guy say watoto wazee wakae chini
Mhm.
tuvurute. So yasema tu wazee wakae chini tukufe haraka. Actually, I have a friend I told the other day, why don't you just smoke two? But you move faster.
Exactly. Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, why delay?
Okay. Now, Peter, just before we hand over things to our business anchor, do you do anything else? What is the other side of people that they have not seen?
First, I have a very normal life. I believe it's normal because when I'm not being Olexander, I am Peter Sankale. Peter Sankale is, I actually like Peter.
Yes.
Because that's when I'm real. I have my own values
Yes.
that I consider to be what I through life. And some of the things that actually that really actually encouraged me to become what I just discipline.
Okay.
The ultimate discipline that guided me to come up with a character called Olexander.
Okay, all right.
And Alexander is actually more known and more loved.
More popular. I know, I understand.
But Peter Sankale is a family man.
Okay.
I am a Christian.
Okay.
I think I'm even funnier when I'm Peter.
All right then. Okay, so we'll continue with this conversation, but I now want you to hand things over to Bonnie Tunya on our camera for this one.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Bonnie Tunya brings in business?
Yes.
I know him.
Yes. I'm sure you know.
Bonnie Tunya, come in with some business of the day. Tell us more.
The Kenya Airports Authority is calling on interested companies to bid for the demolition of the burnt section of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. This follows the condemnation of the arrivals halls, baggage area and the office blocks in a dawn inferno in August last year. Now, the fire resulted into the turning of a car park to arrival terminal in interim basis. The authority has already secured a loan of 2.3 billion shillings from the African Development Bank to fast-track the completion of Unit 4 that is expected to boost operations at the facility. Companies interested in the demolition, the authority adds, must be composed of Kenyan citizens and boast of an annual construction turnover of 200 million shillings and cash flow of 15 million shillings. Just how well are those in the courier services faring with the digital onslaught? Adelaide Changole met one such business that says theirs is a trade built to last and have not succumbed to the digital threats.
Like postal services, demand for courier services in Kenya is still at an all-time high, even though the focus is on digital presence.
And you would think perhaps today, in the day of email and, faxes are outdated now, but all the other communication means that we have, that documents would be a dying business. But it keeps growing, and we carried more documents last year than we carried the year before, which is a surprise.
With the demand, DHL, the global logistics firm, says they have seen their local operations grow over the year, both within the country and from outside the borders.
Our customer base is huge. It goes from governments, from academic institutions, through embassies, businesses of all shapes and sizes, and private individuals.
But even with this near phenomenal growth, the business still faces challenges, especially on the customs front, as well as infrastructure that eats up on its margins.
It's more expensive. If the infrastructure is bad and your productivity is not as high as you'd like it to be, and you're having to spend more repairing vehicles, then the costs go up, and eventually those costs get passed on to the customer. So the better the infrastructure, the lower the price can be.
The operating environment, the company also adds, is littered with firms keen on undercutting as they take advantage of the weak legislative framework in the sector.
They should be paying tax because everybody should be paying the same amount of duties and so on.
DHL is setting its 2014 focus with a positive outlook anchored on growth of business in the devolved system of government.
If you see our business picking up, it's probably an indicator that the economy is going to pick up. And after a pretty flat start to last year, we see things moving much faster, and that's great. I mean, it's motivating for our people, but I'm sure it's the same for the whole country.
Adelaide Changole, KTN Business.
Also, police in Mombasa have arrested a suspect believed to be behind last week's impounded consignment of contraband sugar. The sugar was tracked down to a go-down in Mombasa by officials of the Kenya Sugar Board.
The businessman is suspected to be behind the importation of 1,000 bags of sugar impounded by police and officials of the Kenya Sugar Board in a warehouse in Mombasa last week. Was arrested this morning at the Mombasa court premises. Abdullahi Roka Godana was arrested after appearing in a civil case before Justin Martin Muya, where he obtained a court order stopping the Kenya Sugar Board officials from disposing of their 1,000 bags of brown sugar seized last week. The sugar was impounded by the board's officials and is in police custody as exhibit. The board at the time indicated that the consignment was brought into the country in contravention of the Sugar Act. Currently, Kenya's raw sugar production is estimated at 520,000 metric tons. However, the country still faces an annual sugar deficit of 200,000 metric tons. This gap is bridged by importation from COMESA countries under the arrangement that is set to expire at the end of February. With the expiry of the safeguards, it is expected that Kenyan sugar producers, currently riddled by production and management challenges, will face stiff competition in the market. Philip Ketan, KTN Business.
Shareholders of CMC Holdings have been given a further 3 weeks to accept a 7.5 billion shillings takeover offer by a Dubai-based conglomerate. The Al Futam Group has extended the offer period for the takeover to February the 14th of January 2014. Now, 24th shareholders led by former chairman Peter Muthoka, Joel Kibe, among others controlling 50.6%, have agreed to support the takeover. Al Futam now only needs to secure a 24.4% stake from retail investors for the takeover to be complete. In a statement, the dailies, Al Futam said the extension is also aimed at making up for the December holidays that reduced business days, as well as meeting regulatory approvals from the COMESA Competition Commission and the Tanzania Fair Trade Competition Commission, as well as concerns from franchisers to the change of control of CMC. Al Futam made 13 shillings per share offer for the CMC shares. Right, here's a look at how the markets closed on Friday on the Financial Markets Review, coming up next.
KTN Business.
And the anti-terrorism police unit is tonight trying to identify the body of a man found dead inside a motor vehicle linked to a blast at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. While the National Police Service maintains the bullet-riddled car had nothing to do with a loud blast at the international exit point, KTN can authoritatively report that 2 explosive devices recovered from the scene are now a subject of police investigations. The police service says there was no blast. It was just a bulb that exploded, but it now appears that the body of a man of Somali extraction found in a bullet-riddled car in Shaurimoyo could be linked to the incident. The correct pronunciations of certain English words, and joining me is none other than Willis Ocheng, aka Willis the Word Master. Good evening.
Good evening, Betty. How have you been?
I'm great, Willis. Willis, before we start, I think I have to tell you that here in Nairobi, there's a group of people who call you Mr. Spinach.
Surprise.
I know, right? All right, Willis, let's start. And over the week, I had an argument with my colleagues over a certain word. Do we say parastatals or parastatals?
Well, when we look at the word, Betty, we would think we should say parastatal, but that is not the correct pronunciation. When we are talking about the English pronunciation or RP, that is received pronunciation, we say parastatal. Parastatal.
Right.
Statal, not statal.
Parastatal. All right. Now, a very prominent member of this society wants to know the pronunciation of this, actually the correct pronunciation of this word. Do we say appreciate or appreciate? Noting that there are two meanings to this word. You know, like land appreciates, and then to appreciate someone's, work, So is it appreciate or appreciate?
Well, we say appreciate, 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 not appreciate. Yes.
All right. What about appreciation or appreciation, which sounds wrong already?
By the way, Betty, just to begin from where you asked me the question, we say appreciate, then we say appreciation, then we can always remember that we don't say appreciation, appreciation, especially when you come to my community where sound sh is not there. So that is it.
All right, Willis. And then does that apply to negotiate? Do we say negotiate or negotiate?
Negotiate.
Oh,
negotiate.
Okay.
The verb is negotiate.
Okay.
Then we say negotiation. Negotiation.
All
Just
right.
in the same way, Betty, we also say initiate, initiation, initiate, initiation.
All right. Initiate. Just go back to that again.
Initiate, initiation, initiation. But Betty, if you allow me for tonight, there is a word that many people mispronounce. That is associate. We say associate, then when we have the noun form, we don't say association. You must have heard that. Association.
Yes.
That is not the pronunciation of that word. We say association. Association, not association.
All right, Willis. Now, what about that thing that women wear on their heads, when they're taking a shower? Do you say, is it a shower cap or a shower cape?
Well, it's good you've said shower, shower. Some people say shower, forgetting that we say shower, power, tower, flower. Then when we come to the word in question,
yes,
we say cap, cap. That is shower cap, not cap. Just like we say lap, gap, tap, or nap. Yes.
All right, cap. I like that. Does that also apply to the men? The one that men wear? Is it still cap? Or is it cape when it goes to the men?
Cap. Cap. C-A-P is cap. The only confusion is when you have C-U-P. That is now cup. Cup. It's like it's getting back with what we call a mid-central vowel up. Cup.
Oh, okay.
But C-A-P, cap, a front low vowel R.
All right, Willis, let's go to feedback. And Gabby would like to know the correct pronunciation of this word. Do we say xylophone or xylophone?
We say xylophone, xylophone, xy. That letter X takes sound Z, xylophone, just like we say xenophobia, xenophobia. And then we also have xylem, a xylem. Then we have the name Xavier or Xavier.
Okay.
Xavier or Xavier.
Xavier or Xavier.
Yes.
We have a director here with that name. All right, Willis, Manuel would like to know, do we say opportunity or opportunity?
Opportunity, tunity. An opportunity came across his way or came his way.
Okay.
He had an opportunity to do this. Now, sometimes people say tunity. Betty, remember I said one time that languages are not prescriptive. Sometimes you may find somebody maybe from America saying opportunity. We should not be very strict about that because certain words may have more than one acceptable pronunciation. But under the English sounding, we say opportunity.
What is your surprise word for tonight? Very quickly.
I knew you were to call for surprise word. Betty, there is this past tense of the word fly. Fly. Many people find themselves saying flew. The head of state flew back home. No, not flew.
Yes.
We say flew. He flew back home. Brew, not brew. Brew. We
Okay.
also say drew. The two teams drew 1-1, not drew. And finally, we also say crew. Crew, TV crew, not TV crew. No.
Wow, well, Mr. Spinach, always so much surprises from you. Thank you very much for tonight's edition of Mind Your Language, and have a lovely evening.
Pleasure, Betty, and always just keep it right there.
All right, Willis, thank you very much. Willis, the word master, coming to us live from Kisumu County for Mind Your Language. Remember, if you have any troublesome words, you can always tweet me or text us, and I'll be glad to share them with him.
Well, viewers, you heard it from Willis Ochieng.
The funny English you hear on Nigerian movies. Now, as it turns out, teachers and academicians in Nigeria are now seriously worried that Pidgin English is eroding the official standard English. Take a look.
Your own, they know the thing come.
Wazobia FM is one of Nigeria's top radio stations and broadcasts only in Pidgin, which is a mixture of English and elements of local languages.
And then APC, don't say national down.
Radio presenters here effortlessly translate the day's newspaper headlines from English into Pidgin.
To reach the common man easily, you must speak in a language that they understand. Break it down.
Standard English is Nigeria's official language, but it is seen by many as elitist and is spoken mainly in urban areas. English teachers are in a dilemma trying to stop the influence of Pidgin English.
They prefer using the Pidgin English because, like we said, it's understandable to them more. So yes, I find it difficult most of the times correcting their expressions because it breaks a lot of things. It breaks the English language too much that it destroys their written English as well as their spoken English.
But Standard English is not the only language that is facing stiff competition from Pidgin. Even major Nigerian languages like Igbo, Hausa and Yoruba are seen as being under threat. At this school, pupils learning Igbo are being given a helping hand by new technology. It is not only an application designed to make learning languages fun, but also helps safeguard Nigeria's linguistic diversity.
Scholars, historians, even even government officials are talking about, the fact that, these languages are in a sense going into extinction, so it's a prevalent problem. And so for us, it's, just contributing in our own ways, to addressing this issue.
For Australia, we yesterday not still on the TI now.
As well as uniting different language communities around a common language, Pidgin is a class leveler spoken by everybody from taxi drivers to business executives. Pidgin is now thought to be the most widely spoken language in Nigeria, with many having no option but accommodating it.
For page 12.
Again, police don't disrupt us to rally inside by yells.
Now who go come be?
Patrick Amimo, KTN.
A number of people are asking, are you Maasai? Can you throw a spear?
It's not about throwing the spear. It's just about being Maasai. I wish. Okay, this is a big question that everybody wants to know. Everybody keeps on asking me.
Yes.
In fact, I end up wishing I'm all the tribes of Kenya. But basically, I'm a Maasai. I've always been a Maasai, born a Maasai, practicing as a Maasai, grew as a Maasai, and I'm a Maasai every day, every time, every year of my life.
All right, finally.
But I speak other languages, of course.
Good.
I love languages.
Will we keep seeing you on Vioja Mahakamani?
Yeah. I've been there for now 20 years.
Yes.
I don't intend to stop now, because what motivates me is the audience. As long as there's somebody watching me, whatever I do on screen, doesn't matter which screen anyway. Kenyans are all over the place.
Whether digital or analog.
Sana, we are all going digital, but of course it is linked to analog.
Yes.
There's a sequence, of course. But anyway, I love doing my job. I have a lot of passion, and I appreciate all the people I work with.
Great.
The team in Vioja Mahakamani, I think, is the best in the world.
And we love them.
Especially whatever you do, be friends with whoever you're working with. Even if it is home, be friends with whoever you live with, because it makes you achieve your goals.
All right. Thank you very much for coming for Friday briefing. And we hope to have you another time with your crew members.
Like tomorrow. I'm available tomorrow.
Not that soon.